We're just going to give it a couple of minutes. We let people in. You can already see that about 10 attendees are coming in. And then we go ahead. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes. We let people in. You can already see that about 10 attendees are coming in. Right. Great. So, yeah, I think we're just having a lot more people attend and coming to the session right now. Perfect. It's fantastic. Right. So, hello, all of you all. Thank you so much for tuning in on Zoom and YouTube as well. Thank you so much for being on the platform. And we're just going to give it a couple of minutes for people to start joining in. And yeah, a couple of instructions though for the ones who are already here. Just to help you navigate through the session. At the bottom of your screen, you have a couple of options. There's the Q&A to ask your questions, and you can raise your hands to speak. You can also use the chat to ask. And we'll be putting out a couple of polls to know your perspective on different topics. You'll see these polling results right after you finish voting, right? So make sure you do vote. And hi, I'm Kevin. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm Kevin. I work with Worldview Education. And it's great, absolutely fantastic to have you guys on the platform. So for the last 10 years, Worldview has worked towards, we've been curating learning experiences across the globe for Generation Z. So to deliver these powerful and insightful learning experiences, we've been using tools like conferences and travel and outdoors and simulations, all with the ultimate aim of transforming Generation Z into a generation of solvers. A key aspect of our learning programs has always been adaptive capacity. And we believe that this very adaptive capacity is being tested now more than ever. We feel that you, the Generation Z, have the ability to impact both your local and your global communities. And so we decided that, a global lockdown was not going to hold us back from facilitating your learning. So in this very pursuit, we put together our first ever completely, digital initiative, the Gen Z Solvers Interactive. And the theme for season 1 is Dialogues for a Post-COVID-19 World. We put together thinkers and dreamers, entrepreneurs, artists and change makers. They'll be sharing their powerful insights and their inspiring stories on this platform. And today, one of our very inspiring entrepreneur, actually, she'd like to call herself an enviropreneur, Sukanya. Sukanya, say hi to the crowd and thank you so much for coming on the platform. Great. So I'm quickly going to introduce Sukanya to you guys as well. Sukanya is an enviropreneur, as she'd like to call herself, with a vision to solve some of the major environmental concerns. Her startup, Phabio, is into manufacturing of biodegradable and eco-friendly packaging solutions. Phabio is currently incubated in Biodriddle, biotechnology incubator in Mumbai. Prior to this, she graduated from the Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, with a master's in biotechnology. We have a really funny story and a cool story coming about this specific line that I just mentioned. Post this, she also worked on cancer biology at IIT Bombay. And this was where something very interesting had happened in Sukanya's life. Sukanya, so with her R&D expertise and entrepreneurial experience, she's won several business plan competitions and accolades for her startup, Phabio. She won the Best Innovator Prize among about, 6,400 innovations, is it, Sukanya?
6,400.
It was called the Big Idea Summit, held in Mumbai in 2018. You've also won the United Kingdom Clean Tech Challenge in 2019, hosted by the London Business School among 700 clean tech startups globally. A good thing to see about this, though, that there are 700 other clean tech startups globally, and that's really inspiring and very encouraging to read. Uh, and of course, you've just closed your first round of funding for your venture, and you've actively engaged in R&D and business development to follow your passion. First of all, congratulations for all of this, and of course on the recent event as well. That's great. So, Sukanya, I'd like you to tell us a little about about Fabio and the story behind the idea, where it came up and how it came up.
Of course, I think, Kevin, thank you so much for the great introduction. And I'm equally grateful to Worldview for giving me this opportunity to bring out my story to people out there. It's very important for Gen Z to know the real problems and challenges facing the world right now. So, my story started somewhere in 2015. So, it was majorly a personal push, I would say. My mom happened to be diagnosed of ovarian cancer, and she was asked to get rid of those ovaries because definitely it would develop into something fatal down the line. So that was when I started reading a lot of articles, and I came across this very interesting article by the Harvard Medical School, which said that 90% of the hormonal disorders or the cancerous problems in females start because of overuse of plastic. Because we drink out of plastic water bottles, we microwave food in the microwavable containers, and all of it leaches into our system, causing major health impacts. So yeah, I think that really put that in my head. So the project I chose next at IIT Roorkee was aligned with along those lines. I chose a project in biomaterials, and I worked for 2 years. I researched on this biomaterial where we were working on some different aspects. But over there, I got the idea: why not scale it up and make it more accessible to common masses, so that this material can be used available as easily as a single use plastic.
Great.
Yeah, that was where I got the idea. Then I joined IIT Bombay, and over here I met my co-founder Nikhil, and he was there in one of the global entrepreneurship summits in Shanghai, where he was working on the problem of plastic consumption.
Okay.
So he came back, we had a chat, and he really inspired me to take this up full time and get into the skin of the game. And yeah, we together applied for a lot of grants and won those. Yeah, that's about it, I think. And yeah, one more interesting story, the thing you mentioned about was IIT Bombay. So I was actually working on cancer, curing cancer. And while working, I discovered that although there are few research groups working on curing cancer or all over the world, not few, there are a lot many groups working on curing cancer, but not many on preventing cancer and the causes, which is, and I found plastic to be one of the major causes of cancer, according to my research literature survey and all that. So that was when it struck me really hard that this is something I have experienced myself, and I really need to put out my talent out in the world and create something tangible of value. And that's when I dropped out of IIT Bombay and took up Fabio full time.
Wow. Yeah. How was that transition though? I mean, it would have been difficult for you both, and in with everyone around you as well, to move, make such a big move from IIT Bombay.
Difficult as hell. I mean, convincing parents was the first biggest challenge I had. And then, yeah, definitely, finances was something I had to take care of. So I used to do tuitions in the day and work for my startup in the night. So it progressed like that. From that level, I've come this far that I was able to secure certain funding and all that. Yeah, I think the journey has been difficult uphill, but it's going steady now, and I'm really happy about it.
Fantastic. I know, like the hustle has to be there.
Yeah, that's true.
Great. And one, thing that stands out, you like to call yourself an enviropreneur and not an entrepreneur. I know there are a lot of Gen Z looking at you right now and they're listening to you. I'm pretty sure they want to know why you picked why did you pick this line of work? And you could, how did that transition happen? Why the environment? Probably answered it a little already, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to share a little more about it.
Yeah, definitely, Kevin. I think I'll just share my screen to answer this question of yours.
Sure.
That will clear the air around why I actually took up the enviropreneur concept. So yeah, I think many of us are aware about the concept of Japanese concept of ikigai, which means a reason for being, where you can combine your passion, which means what you're good at. So basically, I'm good at research, so that's my passion. And then what the world needs, that's my mission. The world needs to get rid of plastic, right? And of course, what you can be paid for is your vocation, and of course, it all translates into a profession. So I kind of resonated with this idea, and I thought if I get paid decently for my work here, why not get my ikigai and get my reason for being? I think that's pretty much why I started up with this idea.
Any interesting place where you stumble upon ikigai, or did you already know about the concept, or did you read a book?
Yeah, I think I stumbled upon Ikigai in one of the conferences which was held at IIT Bombay. It was by the Desai Sethi School of Entrepreneurship. That's an amazing organization, by the way. Any of the startups wanting to launch their initial ideas can get in touch with them, and they do support a lot. I mean, in terms of grants, in terms of getting you the mentorship you require in the initial days. So yeah, I think this concept I came across in one of the conferences, and it really struck me harder. And then yeah, the entrepreneurship bug
I'm
bit
not
me.
sure if everyone heard that right. Could you name that institution again?
It's Desai Sethi School of Entrepreneurship at IIT Bombay.
Fantastic. I'm sure some people are already noting that down as we speak, right? So you know, you've already told us
Yes.
how plastic is, how plastics has been dangerous. Most of us already know how big a problem it is. We keep seeing it in the news, we keep seeing it on our Instagram, on social media. We know that it is a problem, but from your perspective, for someone who's working in that sector, and for someone who's doing quite a lot of research in that segment, can you tell us how big the problem actually is at this point of time? Like how bad is it?
Yeah, definitely. So I would share another screen with you. I think, Sahil, can you post the poll right now? I would just like to get a glimpse of how well people know about the problem.
Sure, I'll do that.
Right. So just to fill you in, we have two of our employees from Worldview as well, Sahil and Karthik. They're helping us back in, making sure everything is going on right. And yeah, they've launched the poll. So you guys can answer this poll right now, and we'll publish results as soon as you finish. This will help us understand your perspective better.
Yeah, so talking about how big the problem is, it's really big. I'm going to talk about two aspects here, the macro level and the micro level as well. So, macro is how plastic waste is affecting us, and micro is what happens to the plastic waste once it's there for a lot of years. So, talking about the macro level, it affects the land, the air, the water, everything around us. We already know that. So, without bombarding the numbers, I would just like to give a picture like the amount of plastic waste we generate in an year is approximately equal to the weight of 1 billion elephants. Isn't that really
Wow.
big? That's 1 billion elephants.
Wow,
So, the amount of there goes a truckload of plastic waste every minute into our oceans, every minute. It's that serious. I mean, the numbers are really serious. I don't want to bombard you with the numbers, but definitely something needs to be done. We need to close the tap, and we need to stop this somehow. And
yeah,
coming to,
we're just getting our poll numbers in. I mean, you can look at it on your screen.
yeah,
The question that you asked, uh, what happens to plastic waste? Most of them have answered that it never fully goes away. It breaks into
break
little.
into little pieces. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
glad they are aware of it. I'm really glad.
so
So
that is the
that
that
is actually the microplastics I'm going to talk about next.
great.
So basically, what happens is right from the moment you wake up, you use your toothpaste, right? And the moment you sleep, you use your night creams. So everything, cosmetics, the fast fashion, textile, fabric you're using, everything contains small particles of plastic, microplastics. So all of these go into the water when we wash them, and some of it goes into the air. So we are literally breathing in and eating microplastics. It's that high. The ppm concentration is increasing day by day, and there are researches. You can always google up how serious the problem of microplastics is.
Wow.
And of course, diseases, not to mention, there are a lot of diseases which are caused due to the microplastic problem.
Wow. Okay. And this is, it is definitely glaring. The stat that you just showed, and the questions that you just asked as well. But It is a problem, we know, but it's so, it's all inbuilt into our lives. We use plastic everywhere. You just, you showed a couple of images which we use on an everyday basis, and there's plastic everywhere. How do
Right.
you try and avoid something like that? So my question is, uh, does it have to be a behavioral change? Like, should I change what I'm doing right now? Or does something big have to happen? Does an infrastructural change need to come in? Does the government need to do something? Do the big companies need to do something? Uh,
So I think, yeah, I think it has to be both. We need to have infrastructural change as well. We need to shift to more safer alternatives. And by safer alternatives, I'll explain in my later slides, of course. And we also need a behavioral change. So we are already seeing a great behavioral change. We are all under this lockdown, under discipline. We are all using masks. We are all following social distancing. So this fact only proves that we can be as serious about the plastic problem as we are about the coronavirus. So it isn't that difficult. Using a glass bottle instead of a plastic bottle isn't that difficult. You just need to have that behavior, inculcate that sense in you, and need to be aware of what you are leaving for your future generations. You don't want to leave a world full of problems.
And so, what are the alternatives? I mean, you guys are doing one thing, and
Yeah.
you're working on biodegradable plastic. So,
Yeah.
could you explain a little on what the alternatives are? Even though it's a little technical, but we'd really like to know what could be used other than what's in front of us. That is a lot of plastic. What's the alternative?
So yeah, I'll just share my screen for that answer. Yeah. So there are many alternatives uh, being marketed as bioplastics these days. So the alternatives we should be using basically are should be biodegradable and made out of bio-based resources.
Okay.
So this is the quadrant we are interested in. We need starch and cellulose-based polymers. We can go for PLA or polylactic acid, which is made from cornstarch, or we can go for PHA. But again, PLA or starch or cellulose, all of these are made from food resources. So they might be very intensive on the agricultural ecosystem. And you cannot really grow that much of corn to bring about the plastic consumption pattern. So yeah, then we zeroed down on this material, the PHA material, and we started researching on it. And we have a technology, so we designed it in our labs where we could customize a certain set of equipments and the experiments where we use different kinds of organic byproducts. So these are all byproducts from different organic industries such as beer, dairy, and also the seaweeds, which is a huge coastline around India. So seaweeds can be used in our process. And also the food waste that you generate in your kitchen, even that can be used as a feed for growing our microbial processes. And then it's a bioconversion which happens. We extract the powder, convert it into resins. There's a formulation which is being patented, under patenting right now, and you can then mold it into different packaging applications. Our products are compatible with the traditional injection and molding and blow molding, and they can be molded into anything from right from a spoon to a plastic bag, anything from that rigid to that flexible. So yeah, I think this is what we are doing, and in the process we also release certain byproducts which can be used as fertilizers and livestock without affecting the environment. So it's a very circular economy kind of thing we are doing.
Wow. So you're telling me that everything that I throw out of my house, and the seaweed that we find around us, all of this can somehow be turned into plastic and biodegradable plastic. You're telling me that that's possible, and that's what you're doing right now.
Exactly. Was my screen visible though? I don't know.
You're no, yeah, it wasn't visible, so you could share your screen and
Yeah,
share
sure, sure.
on that the process. How you
Yeah.
could,
So this is the process we have designed. Is it visible now?
yes, yes.
So this is a customized set of equipments we have designed. It's a very small level although, and we just got the funding, but we could not really work. The COVID situation delayed it all. And we are already building a pilot plant for producing these resins.
Right. So by organic byproducts, could you again just list down that whatever you said, because that's
Yeah.
widely interesting. If
And
you just repeat that list again, it would be great.
so yeah, it can be any kind of food waste which is rich in sugars, oils, any kind of food waste, the kitchen waste you generate every day. And
Okay.
then it could be fruit peels, it could be vegetable peels, it could be beer industry waste, the spent grain which is left after the beer is extracted. And then we could also work with seaweeds which are available abundantly throughout the coastlines of India.
That's
And
great.
yeah, so we were recently in a marine accelerator in Europe, which is known as Blue BioValue, because we have been using seaweeds extensively, and we got a lot of coverage over there to use up their seaweeds as well. So yeah, I think it's
Do you
catching
have
the
people
pace.
sending you seaweed saying, please take our seaweed and go? That should be an interesting conversation,
No,
right?
they wanted us to set up our industry over there, which we were obviously not okay with. They wanted the I should not be saying this live. Let's take it offline.
Okay. Right, great. So we
Okay.
have a question coming in. Someone just asked, Sukanya, do you think we can ever go
Uh,
100% plastic free? And if no, what level do you, or to what extent do you think we can allow plastic to exist among us? Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah. So I think we going plastic free is a very ambitious target we are setting for ourselves. It's not completely possible as of now, but definitely we can shift to the compostable and biodegradable varieties, the real biodegradable ones. I'll be also talking about another term later on, which is which Kevin will also introduce. So yeah, we need to make a shift to those materials because from what I know from my research, I have got to know that at least 30% of the carbon footprint goes down when you use such sustainable materials. Obviously, not very much, but in the long run, we are definitely saving up on our carbon footprint. And it's definitely wiser to make the move now as early as possible rather than delaying it.
Right. So I understand. I mean, you have a startup that's working towards this, but we'd also like to know, as someone who's reading up so much on this, what do you do on the personal level, though? You know, something that if at home, like you said, it's really easy to use a glass bottle,
Exactly.
a plastic bottle. Uh,
Exactly.
for all this while, we're constantly thinking about reusable plastic and disposable plastic, but you've taken it up a next level,
Yeah,
changed it, come up with biodegradable plastic. So
exactly.
what do you do on a personal scale? Like, what are the small changes that you made in your life you think that could go a really long way
So
for
yeah,
any?
I think for the past 5 years, I have been bringing a lot of change in my life as well around my people in my home. So the first thing I do is whenever I go out for grocery shopping, I carry a bag because it's not when you are carrying a mobile with you every time, it's not that difficult to carry a bag with you. So that's something we have to inculcate in ourselves. And when people offer you a plastic bag, just politely refuse it because change happens at individual level as well. So
Yeah,
if each one of us can inspire 50 others, or let's say how many participants do we have today? 42.
you, yeah,
So if
more
each
on
one
YouTube.
of you, so my message to them, all of them is even a child can influence 100 other people. So there will be at least 4,200 who get influenced, and definitely that will be a big change in the society. And when this chain goes on, it's like the contact which is happening, like 4,200, further 2,000 more people, and it goes on. That's
It,
how it
it,
happens.
it's great that you mentioned that because at Worldview, that's something that we do, and that's something that we really believe in which is positive change amongst these communities and among, like, if you activate one person and if you change their thought process, they can immediately move it and
Of
make that
course,
circle bigger.
of course.
Uh, and that's why we're constantly referring to, all the generations Z out there. We constantly call your generation of solvers because we know that your impact circles are larger. You can do much more. And yeah, and that's why we're doing this session as well. So Sukanya, coming back, you'd like to tell us, a little more on, how you doing this? What's your approach? How is Fabio doing this in the community? How are you moving it? How are you marketing it? And that's something that a young budding entrepreneur would also to know about. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the it's very difficult to position bioplastics in a price competitive market, and I think we can launch the second poll. It's time for the second poll now. Sahil, can you launch the second poll for me?
Great. So what we'll do is we'll wait for the results to come in, and
Okay,
then we can
sure,
start discussing because I think they're seeing the poll on their screen right now.
sure.
Uh, so the first question is, of course, do you know the average price of a plastic food container, the one we get when we order food online? And after knowing, the second question is, after knowing about normal plastic we use daily and its consequences, would you be willing to pay 30% extra for that bioplastic? Right. So
That's
we have
very interesting
30%
question.
of the people who voted. We'll just wait for it to quickly, increase.
Yep.
So what do you think, Sukanya? What do you think the answers are going to be without looking at the poll results?
So I think a few people have said have told no, 6% of them, which is disappointing for me. Oh my God, guys. They though, yeah, like it's not a big deal. You spend 30% extra on your snacks, beverages. I mean, no, that's purely from a business perspective point of view, but definitely the change needs to come from within. I'm not trying to market my products as well. The only thing I request is we need a behavioral change. You know, don't buy bioplastic, but don't use plastic as well. That's my message to people out there. So that should be the approach.
Right. So we've got our results, and it says, uh, interesting. There's 47% of them do know the average price of a plastic container, and 50% of them don't. So what is the average price of a plastic container?
So the average
These
price
are the
of a
competitors, right?
plastic.
These are the ones you're trying to. This is
Yeah,
the industry you're
right.
trying to kill. Right. So I'm
Exactly.
sure you know about
So the
it.
food bowls you get with Swiggy, let's say Swiggy or Zomato orders, they are priced at around 10 rupees per piece. And exactly. And if we bring out our bioplastic containers, they would be somewhere around 13 or 13.5. And that's the only difference we are trying to make. And of course, going down the line, something more I'm hoping is government policies would play a very important role here. Maybe tax concessions by the government can help us to reduce the price. Economies of scale will also function. Let's say we become the reliance of bioplastics, just a hypothetical situation. So that uh, around that time also the prices can significantly come down and we can.
I'd actually like, to share a little bit on that, the economies of scale. Again, to all those entrepreneurs watching you, because the price is 13 rupees, but it's still 3.5 rupees more expensive,
Yeah,
right? And we're going to be if there's someone out there who's conscious about his or her money, then 3.5 rupees may be a deciding factor at the economies of scale. So, can you tell us a little more on what happens if there are 15 or 20 other factories like yours in Bombay, or 20 other startups in
exactly, that's what we are trying to do. We have built a
what would happen
community
to
of entrepreneurs. We want to become the Oyo of bioplastics as well. That's another vision we are working with. That we want to establish several other plants across the country, and we have a very good WhatsApp group of environmentalists working already with their products and everything.
and all of these people are working on
Yeah,
biodegradable.
on biodegradable alternatives. They don't have a plant of their own as of now because we don't have one of our own. But
Okay.
definitely, we are looking to replicate this model and this industry across geographies and
That's
scale this up really fast.
because you'd expect that you'd want to be competing. And of course, you're competing at some level or the other, but you'd expect you guys to compete and not probably talk to each other about your secrets about your product. But
Exactly.
just having a WhatsApp group with all of these people on it and talking about it, it's massive, because at this point of time, you need a movement like that. You need to start moving the government. You need to start moving the big companies out there to say that, we've come together. Even though we're making the same product, we come together and we're trying to do
Correct.
that's fantastic, right?
So,
So for
yeah,
it said, after the question was, after knowing about normal plastic we use daily and its consequences, would you like to be willing to pay 30% extra for a bioplastic? So, like you said, 10 rupees for a container when the food is delivered to you, and this would be 13.5, or that's around the price that you mentioned. So, fortunately for you and everyone else on that group of yours, you have about 53% of those
that's
people who are ready to
that.
do that.
I mean, that's majority. Yeah, I'm so happy about it actually. Like to see at least 50%, more than 50% of people becoming eco-conscious is a big deal in itself.
Massive, right? The
Is a
economical scale
massive.
works there as well.
Exactly, it's massive. I think I can use this data to force my market research as well. And yeah, I think Kevin, we missed out on one particular point, the greenwashing, which we wanted to talk about. Yeah,
Greenwashing.
so I'll
I'd like you to talk to them about it then. Sure.
yeah. Just one screen I'd like to show so that you know you are smart consumers and you don't end up buying what is not biodegradable and it's only there's only deceptive marketing around those products. So the standards you need to check for each product are ASTM D6400, which is biodegradability. Then we have ASTM D6868, which is degradability. That is 90% of the product breaks down into tiny pieces over time. And also you need to check for EN 13432, which is ecotoxicity. Any other product not satisfying these three standards is not completely biodegradable, is not useful for the environment. That's all. I wanted to put this message out there. Uh,
We've got a comment just now. It says greenwashing. Is it actually a term? I'd actually like you to throw some more light on
yeah, that's a term I have coined. I am good at coining terms, just like I coined enviropreneur.
we
I,
just shared something actually on our Worldview Instagram about greenwashing just last week, and
yeah.
we were wondering, would people know about this term or not? But yeah, since we're here, since we're talking about this, I'd like you to talk about greenwashing a little bit more and how that affects you directly,
Yeah,
and how it
exactly.
affects biodegradable plastic.
So I think there's a lot of deceptive marketing happening around India and different other countries. There is this specific plastic called oxo biodegradable, which is being sold massively at large scales, and people presume that it's biodegradable, but it's actually you add an additive to it, and it just breaks down into tiny pieces of 2 millimeters diameter, which is even more dangerous. Like
And it's microplastic all
it's
over again.
microplastic. Yeah, it goes into your system. That's even more dangerous, but it's being sold widely over the world, like in UAE, in the UAE, in India, in Europe. In Europe, it's recently been banned actually.
So
Very
could you
recent.
share your screen again? And we'd like to see, and of course, those codes and those numbers are really difficult to remember. I don't know if I go to, the store and search for that number, but we'd like to
Sure,
see the three terms that you
sure.
used on your screen. It said biodegradability, degradability, and ecotoxicity.
And what the points mean, that's also mentioned on the
Yeah, if you could just, stress a little about what those each of those words mean.
yeah, so biodegradability means at least 60 to 90% of the product degrades in a conventional composting environment within 180 days, 6 months of time.
And this is what you guys are making? This
Yeah,
is
this is
what
what
you're
we are
working on
making.
right now?
Exactly.
Okay.
And degradability means 90% of the product breaks down into tiny pieces over a period of time. I think I just missed a couple of words over here. Sorry for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that condition has to be fulfilled as well. And ecotoxicity. This is the most important point over here. I want to focus on that when the product breaks down anywhere, it does not release toxic compounds in the environment beyond a certain level, like heavy metals and stuff. So if you are using a lot of chemicals in your plastic, then it's not advisable to use that kind of plastic as well. So you
So,
need to check for all of these three to certify your plastic as being biodegradable and
okay.
useful.
So when you are making your product at Fabio, these are the three things that you have on a checklist, like
Yes,
everywhere, that
yes,
you definitely
yes.
have to get right all the time.
Exactly.
So in the ecotoxicity, how much of the chemical do you actually use in uh, in your product?
So what we are making is
To avoid it?
completely chemical free. That's the USP of our process actually. We are not using any chemicals. Even for extraction, we are using just water, plain water to extract our polymers. So that's the USP we have built. We are using mechanical processes and water rather than using any sort of chemicals to make it more safe and more environmental friendly.
Right. So someone just actually asked the question, and I'm gonna let you answer it live. It
Sure.
says, does this bioplastic fully decompose, or is it just breaking down? I think you've answered a little bit of that question
Yeah.
already.
So it will fully decompose, but around 60 to 90% breaks down within 6 months. And the rest of it breaks down over a large period of time. It can be 2 years, 3 years, but at least the major part of it breaks down. That's what we have also proved through our microscopic studies. We could actually see pores and pores forming after 90 days after. So the product we have built, its life cycle is just 90 days. Within 90 days, it completely loses its structure at least. And definitely it would not choke on ocean, in the ocean environment. It wouldn't choke marine life. And even if it does, so one more USP of the product we are building is, even if it does, it can be digested by those organisms.
And no
uh,
harm.
no harm, exactly. Be it
I'm,
a cow, a blue whale, anything. So no harm coming.
so actually, one of the poll results was pretty interesting. A good section of them, mentioned, for example, the second one about after even after knowing about the plastic,
Hmm.
you will pay the 30% extra price for bioplastic. 1% of it said that they need more information on this. Now, even if it is biodegradable plastic, there's still that question, and I'm happy, and we should be glad that there's that that question before they even use something.
Right.
Uh, is it right or is it not? So they need a lot of information out there. So I think there's a dearth of that. For example, like those 3 points that you mentioned that every biodegradable
Exactly.
plastic has to have.
Yeah.
That's something good to know, and I think people should know and start knowing more about it. And they should be told about this, uh,
Exactly.
and told about biodegradable plastic.
I think
Um,
that was the whole point I wanted to take it up in this webinar, that people should really know what's actually good for the environment, rather than, just blindly being greenwashed, as I said, and
yeah,
buying products which are not actually useful.
yeah. And another question that we got in, that how the person just used, and he's anonymous though. They said, how does a common man in India completely shift from easily available and cheap plastic to biodegradable plastic? Now, I get this. Sometimes it's actually pretty difficult to do it, and it sometimes becomes pretty expensive. But I did a small calculation for myself for a couple of things. In the longer term, it actually becomes cheaper because you don't buy it again. But
Exactly. So
what's
you
your
I have a couple of things on this, that you are saving up on the environment cost, which is of course a great social responsibility you are giving, but definitely that's not the tangible value I should be talking about. But you are also saving on a lot of health concerns which you might be having due to plastic use. So if you see the entire cycle, plastic is bringing you more cost than the safer alternatives. So it doesn't hurt to pay a little extra and be safe. That's what I feel. I mean, that's completely my point of view.
okay? Right. So another question, and these are some great questions coming in. I'm sort of delaying my questions a little bit just to make sure you answer these.
Sure.
Um, Thank you, everyone who's attending. These are a couple of great questions. If you have them, please send them over. And if in any case we're not able to answer these questions at this time, we're sure to take it up on any one of our platforms, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or any other or Twitter. So these questions are great. Right. So another question. It said, how helpful or supportive this or has the government been with these initiatives? Um,
Not really for us. I think we have got a lot of support from governments around the world, rather than our Indian government. I should not be saying this on a live platform again, but unfortunately, I think.
bold with you, and that's something that we should know. But in what way would you like that help from a government? Like, what would you want them?
Uh, So the help which I would like is definitely the government to give more grants to such startups coming up with ideas, make the grant process very easy so that people who apply can get through. We got through one of the grants, but it was again a very cumbersome process to get through it. And it almost took us 6 months to get the funds in our account. So that's it. Like, it's very difficult to work with the government for startups like us, because we need to scale fast. We need that momentum, that energy. If you fall back, you definitely lose out on a lot of velocity, customers, market. You lose out on a lot of things. So we cannot really work with a less momentum, and we need the government to make such grant processes much easier for startups working on ecopreneurship.
Yeah, I mean, for to be an entrepreneur or to start up, you need a couple of people around you to
Yeah.
constantly help you, right? Of course, the market's one.
Yeah.
People who are ready to take up something new, they're one segment. Someone who's socially responsible, and they said we have to do something. They do the research on your company, on your product, and they take it up as an entrepreneur. But of course, the government definitely plays a huge role in the beginning of a startup and what their initiatives are.
Yeah.
It also makes a lot of sense to know what the government is doing for you, and to know if there are these things available for you to take up. So
So
it's
yeah,
not
I
just
think yeah, the MSME benefits and DPIT benefits apply to us because
stop you right there.
yeah.
Look, I'm sure there are people out there who do not know what MSME is. So I'd like you to break that down because these people want to be entrepreneurs.
So it is manufacturing services, and I don't remember the entire full form. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, Prime Minister Modi, the last couple of years, he's mentioned that we're going to go single-use plastic free.
Yeah.
Uh, he wants to, and the country wants to, and there are a lot of people who are in support of that. That
Yeah.
must really help, right? An initiative like that.
That did help. Yeah, actually, we also met the prime minister when I was presenting at one of the events, and he really liked the idea and he was keen on knowing more about it. So definitely, we are in talks with the government, and we are trying to get more funds, get more attention from the government side as well.
Yeah. So of course there was another question which said, you are a young person and you realize that you do need to bring about this change, and of course that has come from different things, a personal struggle that you had,
Yes.
the responsibility for the environment that you always had a calling for, you had all of that. But someone who's a Gen Z, like you said, a younger person, you've already mentioned what they could be doing, uh, the small changes that they could be making in their lives to switch to environmental friendly and biodegradable plastic. What are the other things you suggest for the Gen Z to do right now? It could be, uh, if you have a very radical approach for it, it could be, we'd like to hear you out. Should they need to go out and say stop using this? It's bad. Like, what do you want them to do?
So I think the change should come first at the individual level. They should try to put it in their family first, their mothers, their fathers. They should be talking to them about the ill effects of plastic, and then going on to the communities around them. They should be instrumental in organizing campaigns, awareness campaigns in the societies wherever they are living, respective societies. Like I said, each one teach one. So even if you teach one person, it's very useful for the entire society.
Right. So another person who's another question that has come up: what's the demand like at this point? I'm pretty sure you've done your research on
Yes.
this market and you've started an entrepreneurial journey knowing all these challenges. But what's the demand for such products in India? What's
So
the demand for a product like Phabio that
Uh,
would?
from what we gathered through most of our market research was with one vendor, one of the vendors we were about to connect with, they required 1 lakh bags per day. So that's the enormity of the demand. There is definitely a good demand. That was only one vendor. So definitely, if we move across India, across geographies, the demand is going to shoot up phenomenally.
Yeah,
So
this is Global Interactor, and I'm sure that there are a couple of people watching, a bunch of them watching this webinar from across the world. Um, so, what do you think? I mean, which country is getting it right? Who's getting it right? And you said
I
that.
think, yeah, EU, the European countries are getting it really right. They have strict bans, strict regulations, and they are much more ready to pay the premium price which we need right now. So I think we are also looking at the export markets around the world so that we can really scale up fast, get going, get the momentum, get some real good cash flowing in the accounts.
How important is that?
That's very important. I mean,
Really.
for a startup to be cash positive is very important because you cannot really rely on external funding sources. You need to make profits from day one. That's something I have been mentored as along the journey. So yeah,
Yeah.
we are trying to, and we are also consulting with a few other people who want to establish their units, manufacturing units. So that's another source of revenue we are trying to bring into the company. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's great. You've mentioned quite a couple of points. Another question. Now, the plastic that I'm currently using, fantastic, right? It's strong, it's great. I can reuse it again and again. I have my fears maybe about biodegradable plastic. Is it that strong enough? Uh, Maybe if I drop it on the ground, is it going to break? Those are a couple of the problems that I have. Because if you think of it, if that's going to last longer, then I might as well buy something like that. What's your view on that? How strong is and how similar is plastic the biodegradable plastic or the product you have similar to plastic that we use right now?
Exactly. So I think this problem was not addressed earlier by the other alternatives I was talking about, the starch, the PLA. They were all very, not very similar to plastic, but the alternative we are creating is almost close to plastic. It resembles the properties as closely as you can imagine. And that is proven by our tensile, sorry, I'm getting technical again, by our, stretching elasticity tests we have done with the plastic. So I think the fair argument would be here to create alternatives which can mimic plastic, which can be
What more
very,
to do then?
yeah,
Definitely what more to do.
exactly. So that's the best thing we can put out there in the environment. Like we,
Because paper bags have been there for a really long time, but there's that constant fear, and that's mentioned in this question. The constant fear. That's why you use plastic over paper.
right, right.
And so, but
I
if you have something as strong and as durable as plastic, that, and if the biodegradable plastic, your product is coming in, if that could be as strong and as durable as what we have right now, that would be the best thing to do.
yeah,
It's not just an excuse or a compromise that you're making. It's actually a better alternative in all fronts, in
correct,
terms of price, in terms of durability, in terms of the usage, and it being environmentally friendly at the same time.
correct.
Right. So the biodegradable plastic, the product that you have right now, this particular biodegradable plastic, can you mold it in any form, just like plastic? Because
Yes.
plastic can go in different shapes. We've seen all
Yeah.
the different shapes possible. So is the same thing possible with biodegradable plastic?
Yeah, it's the same thing as possible. Like you can mold it into any form, any and every form, and you can modulate the properties of the plastic according to your composition
Oh,
formulation actually.
that's nice. So
So you
still
can make it
any
as
shape,
hard as
any
a
shape is
tiffin
possible
box.
then.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you hear me?
No, I couldn't, Kevin. I think you'll have to repeat.
Shapes are still possible then.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I was just asking if those shapes are still possible then.
Yeah, they
All the
are.
different you make in plastic is still
They are
definitely possible to do.
definitely possible. I mean, there's no doubt about that. At least with the product we are working with, it's definitely possible.
Great. Fantastic. So I'm just going to look at more of, a couple of questions that are coming in.
Sure.
Um, there are quite a few.
Okay. Even I am looking at the questions.
Yes. So is there anything that you'd like to answer from this? You've answered quite a couple of them, right?
I think someone asked about the market size. So the market size, basically overall, if you go global, the total available market for packaging is obviously very large. It's $900 billion. And for bioplastics, currently it's $29.4 billion. And definitely that's something we want to capture entirely. And we are looking to service it along those lines. $29.4 billion is the market size, entire bioplastic
Big
packaging
numbers,
market.
very big numbers.
Of course.
That's great to hear. That's nice. That's absolutely nice to hear. Right. So, I'd like another thing that we had as a part of our webinar. A question that we had for you
Yeah.
was that one of your examples was creating that WhatsApp groups with the other fellow entrepreneurs, sorry, enviropreneurs,
Environment.
working towards the solution. What are the other things you're doing to get it right? Are you doing campaigns? Do you want people to join you? Is that a thing that you want to put out?
Yes, of course. I really want to do some campaigns. So there was this thing when I went to Europe. The director of that Marine Bio Institute, he advised us, why don't you go back to India and set up something like Blue Bio Value, because you guys have such a vast coastline, and that's so much useful. People don't really use it. So that's something also I'm hoping to mobilize in our country, because that's a huge resource which is being not being used very much at present.
Coastlines?
Yeah, the coastlines and the seaweeds, and that's something I would like the youth to mobilize, building seaweed farms along coastlines, getting the seaweeds, and so that would be a fun activity as well. We
There was
could,
actually a question about that. Someone said, seaweed, is this legit or is it a new fad? What are your thoughts about it?
seaweed, sorry, is the question in the question section?
Yeah, so they actually, I'm not sure where it is,
Mhm.
but it was on this list that basically meant the person was asking if seaweed uh, is it a legit thing? Is it going to be a solution? You're campaigning for it and you're planning to campaign for it. Can you tell us a little more about seaweed? Because we just saw this documentary a couple of days ago which said seaweed can be the solution
The
for the.
solution, exactly. It is the solution. There is a total standing crop of 1 lakh crore seaweeds, tons of seaweed around, along the coastline of India. 1 lakh crore tons. So that's huge, like humongous. And the reason why it can be used as an alternative is it has slimy properties. It can be mixed with other things and be converted into something plastic-like, and that's why I think it's a huge alternative. You get a lot of things from seaweeds. You can make jams out of that. You can make nutrients out of that. So yeah, seaweeds is an enormous industry. Like that's a completely different zone, and we need to mobilize that resource in India. There's a huge requirement to do that.
That's great. Fantastic. This you've shared a lot of interesting things. Actually, seaweed. We didn't see that coming. Uh,
Yes.
so sorry, there was a pun there. I didn't notice that.
And interestingly, Portugal has a $3 billion economy based on seaweeds. A
Sorry,
3 billion. The country Portugal of Europe has a $3 billion economy based on seaweeds, like based on all industries focusing on seaweeds.
so they're going the whole distance. They're doing jams and they're doing some.
They are doing nutrients.
That's
Awesome.
that's great. That's really nice to know.
Yeah.
That's something new, guys. If you're watching this, I would really like you to do a little more research on seaweed because that's what I'm going to do after this session, of course, and be a little more aware of what kind of biodegradable plastic I'm using. I don't want to be greenwashed. Definitely don't
Exactly.
want to be greenwashed. Uh,
Exactly.
we're definitely looking out for Fabio. We'll be really happy to see you out there.
Yeah.
Uh, Something that you're based out of Mumbai,
Yes.
India currently. And one question I had was, where are you sourcing your? That we've discussed this earlier, and I'd like you to share this with the group as well, because this is something really cool that you guys are doing.
Yes.
Uh, where are you sourcing your raw material from? Which is
So we have already talked to a few industries in and around Mumbai. So Nashik, if you know, is the major beer producer around Maharashtra, in Maharashtra, and there are a lot of industries who are ready to give out their waste because they actually spend some bucks to discard that waste. So they are ready to give it for free to us because we are not charging anything to take their waste and convert it into what we make. So
you're
Nashik,
sourcing your basic raw material.
yeah, exactly. So we have been majorly
You're
working on
sourcing your basic raw material for
basic raw
free right now.
exactly. There's a nil opportunity cost, no opportunity cost involved there.
That's great.
Maybe it might,
That's
with time, it might be chargeable because once they start realizing the value of, I should not be saying this live again. I have said a lot of controversial things in this webinar. But yeah, it might be, chargeable down the line when they start realizing that you can make such beautiful things out of it.
So wait, you mentioned earlier
Yeah,
that all my food waste from my house, from my
exactly.
house, can be your raw material, right?
Yeah, it can
And you
be.
just said you're sourcing your raw material from factory. So it's also possible for you to source your raw material from
So,
homes.
homes, yes, but the supply chain would be very difficult. Homes, like it's very difficult to manage because people don't usually segregate the waste; they just throw it off. And it's not been very common in India to separate your organic waste, and that's again a behavioral change which the youth can bring about. I'm sure the Gen Z who's listening to my webinar, they might play a very important role in segregation of waste if they can do it for me. I mean, nothing better than that. I think every day around 3 lakh tons of food is wasted in India every day. So that can be a huge, huge raw material, and definitely once we establish the supply chains, the thing can go really big.
So if you're saying, like, let's say there's an entrepreneur out there, a
Yes,
Gen Z who's attending the session right now,
yes.
what if he or she comes up with an idea maybe to make sure they collect all those bio waste from all those houses and delivers it to you, and they charge you? Will you pay them in excess of 30% on that?
That's a tough question, Kevin. That's a tough question. You should never ask a business person. But definitely, I would like to collaborate with them on a serious note. I would like to collaborate and see how things can go mutually. Like they give us something, we maybe procure some, give them out something else. So yeah, definitely, it has to be a two-way thing, and not always monetary. Maybe it can also be collaborative, and we can work on different models around. We can think of different models.
So anyone with that idea, just, get in touch with Sukanya right away if you're able to source all that biowaste from somewhere and deliver it to her. And she's given us too much information already about her organization. But thank you so much, Sukanya. This was amazing. There are a lot of things that you've told us, a lot of things that you shared with us about the industry, about and how this is just not a business for you. It's definitely not a business for you. It's a lot.
Definitely, it's more of an emotion for me, not a business at all. And I think there were times when I actually went very low. And fortunately, I had a cool group of friends. I still have some friends who keep motivating me. Yes, Sukanya, go, go, go. And that's what keeps me going, I think.
That's
Friends,
really amazing, and that support system is pretty. I'm pretty sure it's playing a big.
every entrepreneur needs to build that support system around themselves, and that's very much required in an entrepreneurial journey, because you're very lonely most of the times. You lose your sleep over multiple things. You have those deadlines shooting in, investors calling you, and it's like a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, but I think a mentor or a support system or a group, a great group of friends and family could really change that. Right? Could
Exactly.
make that
I
entire
think
experience really.
for me, fortunately, that's always been the case. I have got a great group of supportive friends.
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, and that's always helped.
That's great. That's really nice to hear. And again, thank you so much for for doing this, for sharing all that information you have about what you're doing. And it's great to see, even though it's this idea of Fabio stemmed out of personal challenges and that calling. I think, but that's what's fueling you to go forward, and that's what's driving you to go forward. That massive calling that you had to do something like this because it came out of a personal challenge and you were trying to solve a problem for yourself
Yes.
more than anything, right? And I think that's something that we should all keep in mind, which is uh, start introspecting a lot more to look at those problems that we really want to solve. And it's just not a business anymore.
Of
It
course.
becomes a lot more than that. It definitely becomes a lot more than that,
Like,
right? This has been great again. I had a lot of fun talking to you. We're preparing for the session as well. Thank you so much, everyone who's attending the session uh, right here on Zoom and on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. We have a bunch of sessions coming up in the next couple of days. The schedule's up on every social media handle that you can think of, on Instagram or on Facebook. We're live on YouTube for all these sessions every day. You could tune in on any one of these platforms. Great. So thank you so much, Sukanya, again. Uh, Thank you, Sahil. Thank you, Karthik, for the ones behind this. Thank you so much for facilitating this session along with Sukanya.
thank you,
Great.
Kevin. I mean, the questions you have asked really were amazing. I mean, the way you hosted this session was amazing. Thank you so much. So, is
Thank
there any
you. Thank you so much. That I was able to do this. Right. So I'm just going to share this screen very quickly. Uh, right. We're done for now. Thank you so much, guys, for coming onto the session again. As someone just said, that's me. You stole my idea to
Oh,
us. I think they were talking about my idea of sourcing the waste from different
okay.
places.
Okay.
So we'll be ending the session now. Thank you everyone for coming here and follow us for a lot more of the other sessions on our Instagram and Facebook pages. See you guys. See you. Bye,
Got
Sukanya.
it. Bye, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you
Bye.
once again. Bye. Bye, everyone. Shall I leave the meeting?
Yeah.